In this video, you will learn how to integrate Qualtrics generated survey statistics into a formal survey slide deck report. So what we see here is a statistics report that Qualtrics generated that was exported into a PowerPoint file. We are sticking with our example of the OP Surf Apparel survey. So this is the report generated by Qualtrics. So what I'm going to do is copy and paste the analysis, the output that I got here, where it needs to go into another PowerPoint slide deck report that I've already organized. If you wanted, you could start with this Qualtrics report and then move things around and add and format it the way you want. Because you can see it's all laid out here pretty nicely. But when you're first learning how to do this, I recommend starting with an organized outline so you stay on track with what you need to include. So let's look at the organized slide deck that I created previously. So here we have our full report with our proposal, all the methods section. So first we want to fill in our demographics. And those are reported in our slide deck and our report generated from Qualtrics, if you'll recall, at the end, because they were the last questions asked on the survey. So here we have gender, here we have you heard of the OP brand today? So I am literally going to hit Control and copy for these slides. And then I'm going to first just start off by pasting them right here. Now I'm going to go back to this original slide and fill some things in. First, I want to take a look at our sample size. Now, sometimes people might not answer all of the questions, so I want to make sure that I have the same number of people. So here we have you heard of the brand to today, and there's 10 people there, and at gender there's also 10 there, so that's good. If it weren't the same, then we would need to do a different size, like make sure we indicated the different size for each question. But in this case, our sample size is the same, so we're going to go ahead and put that as sample size is 10 right there. Now I'm going to get rid of this because I know what I need to put in. And I'm going to go down and add in these pie charts, circle graphs. So this is for gender, and this one is the brand familiarity. So I'm just copying and pasting at this point so I don't lose anything, and I'll clean it up in a little bit. So I've added in these charts, and then you'll want to add some labels, and you can do that by inserting a text box, gender, and I can center that if I want, and you can make this look nicer. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with cleaning up the formatting. I just want you to get a sense of how this works. For this question, I'm going to include both. Oops, now I have to go back and insert my text box again. I'm going to include both the label I've come up with, which is brand familiarity. That's kind of my measure name. So now I have my demographics and key characteristics that I identified reported, gender and brand familiarity. You can see that 50%, there were 50% of each with a sample size of 10. That lets you know there's 5 and 5. This isn't the only way to display this data. You could just have displayed the percentages and numbers. You could have used different types of charts, but this is a reasonable way to get this information across. Next, we'll dig into our main results here. And first we have the Explore website question. So we will go back to the PowerPoint slide deck generated by Qualtrics and look for that information. And here we have reviewing the website. In these next 3 slides, can we hit Control at the same time to copy them, are the ones for that particular measure. And we'll add those in here. And we can copy and paste that right like that. Now, we don't really need to include this chart as well as this chart. It's really the same information. Sometimes you might want to include it for some reasons. It is nice because it gives the counts as well as the percents. So that's a choice you can make. In this case, I'm just going to get rid of that. And here, however, we have our mean and our standard deviation. So you could just leave this here and add the same heading up there, or if you wanted, you can add it into this slide here. So our mean is 2.90, our standard deviation equals 0.22, and n is what you use for your sample size of 10. So now we've added in that. I would also like to see a little bit of narrative explanation of this data. So don't just trust that people look at this and can make sense of it, but look for a key trend that you see. In this case, when I look at this scale, I see that 40% answered moderately likely. And so that seems to be what really stands out. In fact, if you look at this data, so you have 40% that say moderately, 20% that say very likely, and 10% that say extremely likely. If you add that together, that's 40, 50, 60, 70% of your sample that were moderately likely to extremely likely to explore the website further. That's encouraging findings. So that's something that you could add in here. Okay, so we've added everything in that we need from here, so we can delete this. Now this next slide is looking at our comparisons, which we are going to get to in the next video. So we will skip through and look at our main results of website ratings, and you would go back to the Qualtrics data and find this question here, and again you would copy and paste all of those slides back into here. In this case, this might take more than one slide to really report the findings, but you can input this information in the same way. I do want to draw your attention to this particular slide because if you will recall in the last video, we showed how here we have the frequencies of each of these scales. So I think that that's nice to report because it gives you an in-depth insight into each one of these questions. But then I would also keep this whole table here, which gives you all of the information for the statistics tables, the means, the standard deviation, and the counts for each one of the questions. So in this case, because there's these 3, I would probably go ahead and just add back in. I would add this in and put my heading information in there as well. So you would go through then and input the results for the main parts of the findings in the same way for the rest of the questions. So that's all I'm going to cover in this video. In the next video, we will talk about how to input the information for these comparisons. Thanks for watching.